gosh, cute. That's her photo size. Oh my gosh, what a cute peanut.
If you could all take your seats, I'd like to call the meeting to order. I did. Yes. I never got to use it before.
We don't need a gavel cake. Great gavel issue.
Thank you. I'd like to call the regular school board meeting of November 21st, 2017 to order. Member Harley, would you call the roll, please? You on? Which is on?
Happily. I am here. Member Johnston. Chair Kirby.
Here.
Member Leffler-Kemp.
Here.
Member Oswald.
Here.
Member Sandstead.
Here.
Member Welty.
Here.
Superintendent Gronseth.
Here.
Deputy Clerk Hassler. Here. Secretary Dolans. Here. Student Representative Emmel. Here. Student Representative Francis. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Okay, we don't need to read the civility, I think, tonight. All right, thank you. The first order of business is approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that passes 7-0. Next is the minutes. The first, maybe we can take these together, is the regular school board meeting of October 17th. And the special school board meeting of November 13th. We have to take them individually? Okay, we have to take them individually, I'm told. So first is the October 17th, 2017 regular school board meeting minutes. Are there any additions or corrections, or can I have a motion to approve these?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the October 17th minutes as written. No discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This passes 7-0. Next, are there any additions or corrections to November 13th? And if not, can I have a motion to approve those?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve those minutes of November 13th as well. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Then those are approved as written. Next is our school and community recognition. Can you join me?
Good evening. Members of the board, tonight I am pleased to present Jebba Edmonds. Jebba is a teacher at Congdon Park Elementary and is also taught at Myers-Wilkins Elementary. She holds a Master's of Science in Teaching from the College of St. Scholastica and was featured in their Success Stories series last year. She is a Blanding Community Foundation alum and a recipient of the Minnesota Reading Corps Teachers Corps Scholarship. Jebba is a co-founder of the multicultural blog mommiesinblackandwhite.com, and she co-founded the Ebola Blockade fundraising initiative for Liberia. Her service with the school district includes Nettleton Site Council Committee, ISD 709 African American Educational Advisory Committee, and the ELA Adoption Team, and the ISD 709 Professional Development Committee. For all of this and more, the Duluth News Tribune presented her with the 2017 20 Under 40 Award. Jebba, thank you for all you do to educate, teach, and inspire young Duluth learners and all of us every day. I am proud to be your colleague. Congratulations.
All right, thank you. Next on our agenda is audience participation. I'll remind people that we allow about 3 minutes, and we like names to be kept out of the discussion unless they're praising somebody. First person is Deborah Hanno. Welcome. She's an art teacher.
Hello, I'm here not as an art teacher or your curriculum specialist tonight, but as a resident of Lakeside, and I represent a group of teachers, neighbors, and students at East High School who became enamored of a story last year. It was a year ago yesterday that a very famous cat in the Lakeside neighborhood was hit and killed by a car. Some of you are probably familiar with the story of Catsby. After this cat died, word started to come out. He had, I don't know how many social media accounts. Everyone you talked to knew his story. In fact, his owner got over 100 phone calls from people after the article came out in the paper. Catsby used to come and help us rake leaves. Oh, we miss him. We feel so bad. So he really connected the whole neighborhood in a very unique way, and many of us really were attracted to that story. Last spring, some students at East held a fun run to raise money to help create some kind of a memorial to remember Catsby. By the way, he used to go to Ecumen, the nursing home, knew how to let himself in the front doors, and in the summer he would walk across the laps of all of the people sitting outside in their, in their wheelchairs, so he was quite a character. We had a fun run. The story took off so much that it was featured in People magazine as well as in Runner's World, so the story was attractive not only to us but a lot of other people as well. A sculpture was created by local artist Ann Klefstad, and the memorial is going to be dedicated on next Thursday, November 30th at 4 p.m. on the site. This represents the donation of a $5,000 piece of art, a bronze statue of Catsby on a boulder near the East High School parking lot and the Lake Walk. And so I will be making that donation to the school district on behalf of our group and Ann Klefstad as well. I just wanted to let you know and invite you all to participate in the Catsby story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Judith McKeever. Welcome.
Good evening, Superintendent Gratzeth and school board members. My name is Judith McKeever. I am not only a paraprofessional with Duluth Public Schools for the last 38 years, but I also am in the elected chair for the para bargaining unit and I for ISD 709. Like many of my fellow paras, I have worked in this capacity for many years because I love helping learn. I like helping children learn and value my role in creating and impacting learning environment for all students. Just a quick story. I work at Congdon Elementary, and I've been at Congdon for the last 12 years, and I want to share a couple stories that have really impacted my life this year and the past year. But recently I have a student who I work with who is beginning to learn touch math. He's a second grader. He totally has it. He loves doing his work. I have a student that came up to me just before recess and is beginning to read. That is progress. And that's our jobs as paraprofessionals, to help our students learn. Not only the teachers, special ed teachers and the general ed teachers, but us as paraprofessionals. Unfortunately, as the years have gone by, paras are increasingly finding ourselves in situations that compromise our safety. We expect to work hard to help students, but we should not expect to be that assaulted or otherwise abused throughout the year. We need a commitment from ISD 709 that our safety is a priority and that we will be provided with training to ensure the safety of everyone in our schools. Another issue is the complete lack of substitute paras in our school. With having no subs, it creates instability and inconsistency for our students and their learning environment. It adds an additional stress to the classroom teacher and other paraprofessionals in the classroom, increasing their responsibilities and roles and duties. The demands of the job require higher pay to attract people to work as paras and substitutes to help ensure that we are carrying out the mission of paras in the district. Frankly, when the district hires paras as a threshold under the amount of allowing them to be eligible for benefits like health insurance and at an hourly rate lower than a convenience store worker, it calls into question how important ISD 709 actually considers paras. As we enter into negotiations, we look forward to working with ISD 709 to establish what we are worth to cultivating an effective learning environment for Duluth's children. We work hard and are dedicated in ensuring the students' success and that ISD 709 succeeds at providing the best education in the state. We expect that ISD 709 treats paras as valuable members of the team as we will create an effective learning environment for our students. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening, Superintendent, board members, and attendees. My name is Ethna Shamwal, and I have begun my third year with Duluth School District as a special education paraprofessional. I'm also paraprofessional bargaining union secretary and building contact at Laura MacArthur School. As Thanksgiving draws near, I would like to take this opportunity to give thanks for my position I hold in the DCD room at Laura MacArthur Elementary. I can honestly say to you all that I love my work. Our teacher, Cynthia Gordon, in demonstrating her passion for the education and welfare of her students, inspires us all daily, both children and staff, to give of our best. It is a classroom where much more than academic learning takes place. It is where life lessons are learned and caring, kindness, joy, and laughter are shared. I also want to take this opportunity to give thanks and appreciation to the 260 individuals who collectively make up the paraprofessional body of the Duluth School District, many of whom cannot be here this evening because they are working second jobs. These are the men and women who daily stand on the front line in our school buildings, who work with and directly manage students with special educational and medical needs, some of whom display very difficult behaviors. As a result, paraprofessionals are increasingly subject to daily verbal abuse and physical assault. I would like the district administration and school board to consider giving more credit and tangible recognition to the paraprofessional staff for their achievements and hard work. Why not a Paraprofessional of the Year award for excellence like the one that is in place for the teaching staff? Interested paraprofessionals could also be given the occasion to address the school board and share who they are and what they do. And an appearance on the ISD 709 news website would also prove helpful. Paraprofessionals need to be recognized more publicly for their accomplishments and the vital role they play. In order to feel valued as employees, it needed to be communicated to all paraprofessional members why there was a delay by the district in commencing negotiations for our 2017-2019 contract. Our negotiating team have been in place for a year. Such a delay is not conducive to cordial, positive working relations and reduces employees' feelings of worth. Negotiations with the Human Resources Department will now take place in the coming weeks on the 6th and 13th of December, and we are looking forward to a fair contract. To end with one of my favorite Irish quotes from my homeland, "A great employee is like a four-leaf clover, hard to find and lucky to have." Our professional body are great employees. Thank you very much, and I wish all Duluth Public School employees a happy Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bernie Burnham is next.
Well done, ladies. I do want to speak in support of pairs as well. I mean, as a classroom teacher, and you know, we've been out doing one-on-ones for the last few weeks with our teachers. We need them, and they are critical to our work every day. We're very appreciative of the work they do. As I look in the audience, there's a number of you that I've worked with over the years, and I'm really happy to know you. So thank you for the work you do. All the folks in the building appreciate you, so thank you very much. As I said, we've been doing out one-on-ones with our folks, and we're just about done with all of our buildings. It's been a great process again this year, and we've had lots of good conversation with people. Identifying, you know, what they think is critical to their daily life as a teacher and also to our students. So we're asking questions about all of the above and want to know how things are going. There are just things that keep coming to the surface, and I know you're aware of all of those, and we'll share those always at the labor management table when we have conversations. A couple that I want to highlight are, you know, again, and this para situation has been an issue this year. We're really having a hard time. You know, we see the positions posted all the time, and our teachers are feeling it, our students are feeling it. It's very critical to the work that we do as a district every day. Mental health needs, again, as you know, they just keep rising to the surface and feel overwhelming for a lot of people. So with that, I'll stop there because I've asked a couple of folks to come tonight, and I have with me tonight, I have Matt Hession and Kathy Bogan from the Duluth Community Schools Collaborative Board. We sit together and do the work that needs to be done to work with all three of our schools at our community school sites, and then following them will be Stacy Achterhoff, who I often read her posts on Facebook, and they just are so, they also bring light to many of the things that we need to address, and she does great work with kids every day, and I, again, thankful for the work that she does and the children that she touches. If you ever get a chance to read some of those, I just said to her, you got to come and share one of those stories for us tonight. So we'll start with Matt and Kathy, and I'll let them go. Thank you, and as the lady said, have a great long weekend.
Thank you, Superintendent Gronseth, and board members, attendees, and Bernie for that introduction. I'm Matt. She's Kathy. What I wanted to do was introduce a little bit about where we're at with the Duluth Community School Collaborative, where we wanted to be, and then Kathy will talk about the progress we've made so far. So I initially got involved with the collaborative back in 2001 through a partnership with the College of St. Scholastica when I was a student there, and worked for the collaborative for 6 years when I was at Grant, and then it transitioned to Nettleton, and then back to Myers-Wilkins. And so now I serve as a board member for the collaborative, and Kathy and I have been tasked, along with others from our board and the community, to help scale up that model. Our parents at Myers-Wilkins began asking for those supports in middle school and high school, and so we decided to move to Lincoln Park Middle School and Denfeld High School initially as part of an equity strategy and where the highest needs were as requested from our parents. And so we were able to get a site coordinator at Lincoln Park and at Denfeld High School starting this fall, and a long, almost 20-year dream of having a pipeline of support for graduation and eventually having every school be a community school is starting to be realized. And Kathy's going to talk a little bit about the progress. So thank you all for your support.
Well, hello, board members and Superintendent Gronseth. Again, I've had the opportunity to meet with many of you and run into you at numerous community events. I do appreciate your support as we've grown from being a one-site, full-service community school that was recognized statewide and nationally as a forerunner in the community school movement to now scaling up to 3 sites. I thought I'd give you some exciting updates just to make it a little more real. You have a little flyer there. One of the big dreams for the community school site at Myers-Wilkins we're always trying to hear our families and kids and hear what they need to be successful. And years ago, I would say it's about 18, when we first gathered our community together, the biggest need we heard is we wanted enrichment opportunities for our children after school. Very critical in the elementary years, both in terms of expanding horizons, but also just the fact of having a place where kids can be after school and get that kind of supervision and quality experiences. But another that came up repeatedly was health issues across the board, emotional health, physical health needs, eyeglasses, hearing screenings, and then what we call social determinants of health. And we were hearing this from families. We realized this dream about 4 years ago when we formed a partnership with Generations Healthcare Initiatives and many of our, also St. Louis County Public Health, and many of our community health providers. And so you've got a little flyer there. We're 3 years into this project called Together for Health at Myers-Wilkins. What was really cool about this is in conjunction with Together for Health at Myers-Wilkins, we also established our community's first community health worker through the county. And this is a new health position, a person who is a member of the community that is trained to go out into people's homes or work in a community site to address unmet needs and connect people with the services they need. I think it's interesting to note that we've served in our time 416 families through Together for Health. We have an office located right there at Myers-Wilkins, and found that this is a way for families it is actually a really good attendance strategy because it helps us find what is keeping kids from attending school, whether it's a health need. We found asthma to be one of the really key things to address in a school. And sometimes that needs to be done outside of just simply going for a clinic visit. So anyway, that is Myers. We've had Together for Health. We continue to serve over 300 students in our after-school and summer programs. We were selected at Myers as being one of 5 sites nationally by the Coalition for Community Schools for our work in creating a culture of health, and also we're getting technical assistance on how to expand that at all sites. Lincoln Park Middle School has been successful at every site we address those key things that the community comes up with, and transportation was what we heard at Lincoln Park Middle School. We now have a bus route that comes up to Lincoln Park Middle School, and that has substantially increased. Oh, I see the little light. Okay. Parent engagement. And lastly, Denfeld, we have a site coordinator who has completed a strategic plan for the after-school program, which will be starting in February. So a lot of exciting things happening. I want to thank you for your support. I want to especially thank student member Ben Amel for being an inspiring force on the Denfeld site team.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Stacy Achterhoff. This is my 10th year as your Families and Transitions Intervention teacher, and my work is trauma-informed reading and math interventions for kids at Myers-Wilkins Elementary who are homeless or have been homeless during this school year. I ended my day today, I think, with 42 kids. I'm here tonight to ensure that you have some understanding of what it is like to be a homeless elementary student, or their family, or their classroom teacher, or me, their intervention teacher. I really wanted to cover ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, but I don't have time. So here's what it looks like. I'm 7 years old, and I wake for school. I hear my parent, an addict with a felony who is trying to stay sober, arguing with the person we're staying with. This argument escalates until I understand that we cannot stay there anymore. We grab what we can and shove it into bags, and my parent is angry and ready to give up, and I know he has to go see his PO or go to jail. I go to the bus stop and I go to school. I eat breakfast and I head to my classroom. It's my turn to share. I gather in a circle on the rug with my first grade classmates, and when it's my turn to share, I say, I'm sad because I think my dad is going to jail. I'm ready for questions and comments. I look around the circle and 4 classmates in my class of 23 raise their hands, and as I call on each one, I hear this. My dad had to go to jail and I miss him. I cried when my mom went to jail. And on and on and on. Because this is how we roll at Myers-Wilkins. When I stopped to pick up that kiddo, his teacher caught my eye and she did one of these. And one-on-one, the kiddo and I talked about being doubled up and all the worries. And we decided that the 2 worries that day that would make school hard was not knowing where to go after school and wondering if his dad was going to get to the PO appointment. We called his dad and we made a plan. And then he turned to me and he said, "So what are we reading today?" And I taught him reading strategies. We at Myers-Wilkins are the square peg for your round hole. We are your segregated school. We aren't a neatly shaped pyramid of academic and behavior needs. We are socioeconomically segregated. And I tell you this not because we need more backpack drives or more crayons or more clean clothes or more food. We are drowning in the needs of our kids. Our kids, our classrooms need more trained grown-ups, more teachers, more paras, more therapists, and more social workers. Without this district is choosing to burn out amazing teachers. I'm ready for questions and comments. I have 2 letters from 5th graders that wanted to write to you, so I don't know if I can just pass them to you and you'll pass them down.
You could just give them to the clerk, and, well, that's right. Thank you. Next is Tina Soroki.
Thank you, school board members. My name is Tina Soroki. My employee number is 10938. I started as an hourly working in a playground, Morgan Park, back in 2008. So I've been around the block a few times with different schools, working different capacities. Hourly, getting called in, can you come in and help us? ECFE, school readiness, special ed. But I'm no longer an employee here today because on November 9th, I had a meeting with HR telling me how inefficient I am as an employee, that I did things that I guess I wasn't supposed to do even though I didn't know that I did them because they didn't really happen. So it created an environment that I see is very unhealthy and very toxic. This environment's been going on for a long time. Started in 2008 when I started at Stowe Elementary and was bullied by an employee who was also a playground monitor, told me to leave the playground, that I didn't belong here, that I didn't know anything. Why don't you just leave and quit? But that wasn't going to happen because I knew why I was here. I was here to protect the kids from being bullied on the playground. But yet, I'm shaking right now because I'm suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder that's pretty much started around that time. And I was pretty stable until I started in the fall of this year working in a Head Start program where I wasn't welcomed. I wasn't welcomed from day one when I was told on the 29th by my supervisor not to come in for 2 weeks until the 18th of September, that I wasn't needed to be trained in, but to come in on the 18th. And I questioned that because I went to HR and questioned, when am I supposed to be working so I can pay my market rent that I'm now paying? How am I supposed to move on if I'm not going to be trained? So my concerns here today are that I know, and I hope you are aware, that there is a climate that goes on in this district that's not healthy. It's not healthy for employees. I've heard on other levels of burnout, But when someone is not liked, or if you disclose something, which I did, I disclosed a disability to my coworkers, and I was also challenged about that. And that was the first week that I started when I actually did get to go back to school, because I called HR and I called the director, and, oh yeah, you're supposed to start. And I said, well, I thought I was supposed to start because my contract said I started on the 29th, so I don't get 2 weeks off. That would have been great to have 2 weeks off to go camping and go see the sites for 2 weeks, but no, I came to work. And I love this district. I worked so hard to get a contract only to lose the contract. I have wonderful recommendations from the staff that I've worked with. And starting in February when I started, I was in love with the kids that I was working with, because I knew that their challenges were my challenges, but I was going to be there to help them. And I did not get to finish. Instead, I have a long letter that was sent to me and also tried to be read to me of how inefficient I am as a para 2 for 18 hours a week. And I want you to know that day was a very difficult day for me. But the next day I woke up and I went and substitute taught with another district. So I want to let you know, I know that I'm qualified and I know what's in my heart. But when people write a very long statement of all the things that they said that I did, and I didn't even get a chance to rebuttal it, that is not just. So that's something to think about. I think the situation should be re-looked at. I think I should have an opportunity to speak to the people who I made contacts with earlier before this happened. I made contacts to the assistant superintendent, also to the superintendent's office. And I'm sorry about the red time. I apologize. I thank you for letting me speak on this concern.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is Kathy Doyle.
Good evening, Superintendent Gronseth and the school board members. I am Kathy Doyle, a grandmother with students at Piedmont, Stowe, Lincoln, and Denfeld. And I come before you as a representative of the community-based School Equity Initiative. A number of us were able to attend the district's annual report event on November 9th. We were encouraged to hear about the many successful partnerships and initiatives. We were also encouraged to hear that educational equity, will be receiving focused attention in the year ahead. In particular, we heard the district will develop a set of questions with which to assess the degree of equity represented by a given policy, practice, or program. We applaud the creation of what will be essentially an audit tool as a meaningful commitment to addressing systemic inequities. We also look forward to the special school board meeting next week on November 28th at 5 p.m. to address the equity in funding issue as reflected by the diversion of compensatory education funds from their intended achievement gap purpose to instead meet general education needs. Finally, we have once again been inquiring into the busing issues that we raised last spring. It is our understanding the district has the software to look at last year's attendance data for Denfeld to determine if there is a measurable relationship between absenteeism and inclement weather for those enduring the up to 2-mile walk to school. We would like to know if the district and this board are committed to looking at that issue and when the community can expect to have such data. Thank you.
Thank you. there are no other names, is there anyone else who would like to speak? No? All right, thank you. All right, thank you for all the speakers. We will then go on to reading communications petitions. Are there none? Then next is report of the superintendent.
Thank you, Chair Kirby. Tonight, before the board meeting, we had the opportunity to celebrate our newly tenured teachers, and this was our largest class of newly tenured teachers since 1978. There were 50 teachers on the list. We're happy to recognize their successful completion of their 3-year probationary period. And I'd like to thank everyone who worked to put that celebration together. I know Greg Jones has a big part of it, and Bernie Burnham, and all of the principals who spoke so well about our newly tenured staff. I'd also like to recognize the Duluth East Sterling Strings who performed tonight, and congratulations to all of the teachers, and thank you again to all those involved. As it was mentioned earlier, this month we held our annual meeting at Lincoln Park School. That too was an amazing event, and I want to thank the many people that make the event possible. Each of the schools and several of our programs and community partners had informational booths that were set up in the lobby. The Denfeld Jazz Band played, the Maroon 6 sang, and the Denfeld Deli students made amazing refreshments afterwards, and everyone really enjoyed them. I believe the favorite were those little mini cheeseburger bites, I think they call them. Anyway, we thank them for creating those and for sharing them. We also shared the annual report with a video summary, and all of the information that was shared that night is available on our website at www.isd709.org. As it was also mentioned earlier, at the meeting we shared our plans for a community conversation about educational equity. The Department of Minnesota, the Department of Education of Minnesota, working with focus groups and partners from throughout the state, along with Voices for Racial Justice, developed a definition of education equity and have adopted that as a state. And so in the coming weeks, we're going to be digging into that with community advisors, with focus groups, with staff, and the community in general, to review this definition and to set up a tool, if you will, an audit tool, a set of questions that we can use as a district whenever we're making important decisions about procedures or policies or programs or budgets, to ensure that we are focusing on equity in everything that we do and making sure that our students have the best possible opportunities available. On another related note, recently a team of teachers and administrators and support staff and students attended the annual Minnesota American Indian Education Association conference. That was last week. And the entire conference was infused with Ojibwe and Dakota traditions and was focused on how we can better serve American Indian youth and ensure that our students and our families can see themselves reflected in our schools. Topics such as culturally responsive instruction, microaggressions, community involvement, and much more were on the agenda throughout the 3-day conference. And while we're at the conference, Edie Howes, our coordinator of American Indian Education here in Duluth, received Administrator of the Year. And so we were glad to be there to support her. 2 of her students surprised her by wrapping her in a blanket while she was receiving the award. And that was really special for all of us to see. So we're really fortunate to have her working with us as we work to eliminate the achievement gap and raise graduation rates of our American Indian students. I want to say that we recognize that it's important to recognize and celebrate all cultures within our schools, but this conference was specific to American Indian culture, and so I just wanted to share that as well. In the coming weeks, there will be many more opportunities for us to see and hear our amazingly talented students There will be band concerts and orchestra and choir concerts, and all of our elementary schools will be putting on programs. You'll be able to see art in the hallways and see the celebration of many cultures throughout our schools. And so you can either contact the schools, or you can look at the school websites for the dates and times of all of those programs. And now we're going to hear from our high schools, and why don't we start with Student Representative Cabria Francis from East.
Okay. So this month in Student Forum, we discussed the parking policy as our policy of the month. As many of you know, it's a very highly talked about policy among Duluth East high schoolers. We also talked about what they want to see in the next student rep. Elections are going to be next week, and we actually have a couple students back there running. So I look forward to seeing how that's going to pan out. We also talked about increasing lunch line efficiency, bullying and cyberbullying, and ideas for volunteering in the community. We might be bell ringing with the Salvation Army. Academically, 6 students were named commended students in the 2018 National Merit Scholarship Program. Joanna Caskey, Ryan Johnston, Britta Larson, Angela Park, Anika Pokorny, and Kale Steinmetz. They all had amazing PSAT scores, and that's why they were recognized. Yesterday, freshmen got to familiarize themselves with the drug dogs that are relatively new to our school. They are really excited to have dogs in the school. In terms of art programs, as I spoke about last meeting, the a cappella sang at the ACDA State Festival and performed very well. I know a couple of you were able to attend, but the Beauty and the Beast play that we put on was amazingly successful. We had a packed house almost every single night. And also, as our Superintendent Gronseth spoke about earlier, there will be a holiday concert where pretty much every band and choir will be singing or playing in. In terms of sports, the cheerleaders at our team, at our school, have been doing fundraisers for their way to nationals. There was a volleyball tournament, intramurals for exec board. 2 girls went to state cross country and they did well. The boys state soccer, as I talked about, or the boys soccer team, as I talked a little bit about last meeting, went to state and they placed 3rd in the state. The girls had their first hockey game and their boys are beginning. And then finally a couple miscellaneous items. We had a really successful blood drive. There was a Houndpack freshman game night. There was a book and board game drive where we had all of the students donate used books, lightly used board games, and we're donating them to YMCA after-school programs. And there were alpine ski and speech meetings. And speaking of speech, there was also a speech team fundraiser at Pizza Luce, and Lainey and the Tramps performed, and that was really successful. So have a happy Thanksgiving, and everybody wash your hands to stay safe from the flu. Thank you.
Thank you. And now let's hear from Denfeld from Student Representative Ben Ellis.
Thank you. Denfeld's theater department's production of High School Musical was an amazing success. Nothing but high praise and compliments have been given to all those involved in the production. Also, Denfeld's Link Crew had an event that night for all the freshmen, and starting right after school, the Link leaders and freshmen together in the lecture hall watched the movie High School Musical, and after that was done, everybody moved down to the Commons where a spaghetti dinner was served to the freshmen, and following that, all of the freshmen and Link leaders sat together in the auditorium and watched the musical, and it was a big success, and over 100 freshmen attended the event, and I'm hoping that this can become an annual tradition for the Link Crew and theater department. And sadly, fall sports have ended, but winter sports are starting with high expectations for this coming season. And I would like to recognize and give a shout out to Shelby Johnson for going to state in diving and Aaron Rudd for going to state in swimming on the Denfeld swim team. Also, on the debate team competed in a Twin Cities debate tournament at Cooper High School, where Autumn Zierman and Quinton Ramoldi took second place in their debate category out of numerous schools. And we also had many parents come to our fall conferences, and they learned more about Denfeld and about how our full-service community school is progressing and how Denfeld will become is becoming a more functioning full-service community school this year. And I'd also like to point out that the Christmas City of the North Parade, Denfeld's dance team and marching band performed, and Ms. Gagniers told me that Denfeld's dance team was on the front page of Saturday's newspaper. And also, Miss West Duluth, Queen Gracie Anderson, and Princess Emma Schultz, who are both Denfeld seniors this year, were also a part of the parade. And Denfeld's Fall Ball on October 28th was a great success, and the theme was Halloween, and it was a lot of fun. And Denfeld's student government on Halloween trick-or-treated for canned goods in the Denfeld's surrounding neighborhood to kick off our Denfeld's annual food drive, in which we have a competition between second-hour classes to see which class can raise the most food. And Senora Alm's class won the competition, and I am in that class. And our neighbors were extremely generous in their donations. How I'd like to point out from personal experience, it's a little awkward going up to the door on Halloween night and they see a big high school kid. They think they're trick-or-treating for candy, but everybody was extremely happy and extremely generous in their donations once they found out why exec board members were there. And this year we collected over 1,200 food items to donate to CHUM for this holiday season for those in need. And Denfeld's math team competed in its first meet a few weeks ago and had some great success. We are ahead of East by a few points and only behind Marshall and Hermantown. And I'm on the math team, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming meets and hoping for great success. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. And I have to say, I don't mind high schoolers trick-or-treating, but it's nice to have it all go for a good cause, too. In fact, I might, give to the cause and candy as well, I bet, along the way. Perhaps a little bit. Yeah. All right. That completes the superintendent report. Chair Kirby.
Thank you. I will say that my family and I went to both of the musicals, each of the high schools, and there are some very talented people at both schools. I personally am not a great fan of Walt Disney musicals, but my kids thought they were great. I think it's a generational thing of the thing. They were very good. And I also attended a band concert this afternoon at Ordine. So the concerts have started. I was glad to see that one of the people getting tenure was a trumpet teacher from Lincoln Park Middle School, and my son plays a trumpet, so I think that's very good too. So attend all of those concerts. They're really good. All right. Next, we have a report of standing committees, and we'll start with Member Leffler-Kemp in Education.
Thank you. Thank you, students. It's always exciting to hear the many different things that are going on, and I too, like Chair Kirby, have had the opportunity to get out to a lot of events and just appreciate the talent that we have across our district. So I always appreciate your reports. So I am reporting on the Education Committee that was on Tuesday, November 14th. And I will begin by just, I moved the November Education Committee. We begin each committee with informational items, and the first item was Assistant Superintendent's monthly report, and she laid out a number of areas that she's been doing her work in. Thank you, Assistant Superintendent Starzecki. Her and the superintendent have continued throughout the year, been doing site visits with staff and in different buildings. And so this past month, they spent time at East High School, Laura MacArthur, Myers-Wilkins, and I think that day of the meeting you were at Congdon Park as well. So appreciated just the work that you're doing in getting out to our schools. She also touched on some of the work that her and the superintendent are doing around communication with our staff across the district, attending staff meetings across the district to share the strategies that we're working on district-wide and just working to make sure all of our staff are on the same page, so to speak. And then also the work, she talked a bit about some of the work that her and the superintendent are doing around more communication, more regular written communication with staff. She also gave us updates on the staff development that happened this fall. There were mandatory trainings that were delivered to each site on bullying and harassment, mandated reporter and restrictive procedure trainings, and then reviewed with us some future trainings that will be happening. So we always appreciate all of the updates that you provide to us on your work, Assistant Superintendent. The next informational presentation we had was from Congdon Park and East High School. And we will be having, as reported last month, a couple schools each month will be reviewing with us their record of continuous improvement, which is their school plans and goals for the year. And this work that they're reporting to us on is work that is being done with a team in each school called the Continuous Improvement Team. And they presented us with information that we will be presented from each school that included just a number of areas, celebrations that they have in their school, a lot of the data review that they are doing as a team to look at what are the strengths and what are the challenges at their own school, and also school goals and school action plans. So we spent about an hour with a group of people from East High School and then a team of people from Congdon, and just really want to thank the staff that are meeting to put together throughout the year these record of continuous improvement, and also just the leadership it's taken to make this happen. We have heard a lot about these continuous improvement teams coming together and being trained to do the work, and so this is really, the presentations we're going to be having ongoing over the next few months are a lot of work that's happened over the last year by staff at the district level as well as the staff at each school level. So just encourage people to look through that. I really appreciate it. I think we all did. The thought that was put in, the hard work that was put in by the different teams from the two schools that we heard from this month. The second informational update was by Dr. Michael Carey, Director of Curriculum, and it's about the secondary schedule task force update. And again, this is a task force that has between 20 and 30 participants, teachers and district staff across the district meeting. They've been meeting since June. And this task force is looking at different options to accommodate different options for our high school level for the school day. And so they've been reviewing a lot of different options around the country. They've been getting feedback, and they've been meeting every month for a couple different times since June. They'll be bringing back to the board recommendations to look at a potential change in our secondary schedule. So, and there'll be a lot of community input throughout that process. So we just got a quick update on that. And then the third area for information updates is a new item we're going to be doing each month, at the Education Committee. And we have a number of different advisory committees throughout the district, and so we're going to be hearing from a couple people from the advisory committees. It'll be an opportunity for us to hear more about the work that they're doing, the goals of their committee, as well as to get feedback. And then so this month we heard from the Education Equity Advisory Committee, EAC, and we had Will House, who's the Office of Education Equity Coordinator, present, and Diane Lowry, who is the current chair, present. We do also have 2 school board members that serve on that committee and actually serve on a number of the other advisory committees. So we appreciated that update, or the start of this conversation each month. The fourth informational item we had was a course guide update, and each year we have school counselors and specialists and staff look at our course guidebook, which the students will be registering in February, and make any changes. And so on page 15, it does highlight a couple of the changes, new classes we've added, new courses we've added, and courses that will no longer be there, and some course name changes. So those were the informational items, a lot of great presentations. The next item on the agenda is grant applications, and we did not have any this month, no regulations, and then we have action items. And the first one is the changing the name of Woodland Hills Academy to Rockridge Academy. And again, as I think most folks know, Woodland Hills, the educational building of Woodland Hills is going to be relocating to Rockridge School after the holidays, and the district administration is recommending the name change from Woodland Hills Academy to Rockridge Academy. And I think students helped a lot with that name change, so that was great. So it's recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve this item. Would you like me to do the resolution separate, Chair Kirby?
Grant awards, yes, why don't you do that?
Okay, so every month we do the acceptance of grant awards, and so on page 16, I move resolution E11173490, acceptance of grant awards to Duluth Public Schools. Whereas Minnesota Statute 465.03 requires the school district to accept grants by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the grant in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools, now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described grant from said organization in accordance with the terms set forth herewithin. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to this organization. And it's the Northland Foundation. It's a grant award of $3,000 to expand our outdoor opportunities for preschoolers and their families. And it will be used by the Duluth Head Start students at Stowe and Barnes.
Second. It's been moved and seconded to accept, to pass resolution E11173490. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of this motion say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes 6-0.
Okay, great. And then the next item is just a number of extended field trip requests. We have the Skills USC Leadership Conference. Denfeld and East High School students traveled to a leadership conference in October. It's recommended that we accept and approve this item. We have a second, Denfeld High School, their Health Occupation Students of America from Denfeld and East traveled in early November to a leadership conference down in the Twin Cities. It's recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve this item. And then the Health Occupation Students of America from Denfeld and East, they went to another they're going to another training, an emergency preparedness camp. And again, recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve. And then the health occupation students, they're going to a lot of places. Wow. With great opportunities for Denfeld and East High School students in those classes. And again, another leadership conference in December. And the funds for these are being paid through grant dollars and student fees with all of them. So those are the extended field trip requests. We also have 2 extended trip requests for Lester Park Elementary going to their annual Wolf Ridge trip, and then also to Homecraft, also going to Wolf Ridge, and both schools and many of our elementary schools have that opportunity to go up there. The funds for these are, the trip by Lester Park is organized by parents, financed through fundraising activities and student fees, and will take place outside of the regular school schedule. And with Homecraft, it will be also student fees and donations, and their trip is in March. So, again, recommended that we accept and approve all of these items. And the last area is diploma request, and this month we have 4 students that have met all graduation requirements for the Duluth Public Schools and should be awarded a diploma. Courtney Lynn Andrick, Brandon M. Cheatham, Dominic Romagnoli, and Justin L. Knight. And again, recommended that the Duluth School Board accept and approve the above diploma requests. There were no policies, and next month we will be reviewing the 2018-19 calendar and other policy updates. I move the education report.
Second. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to accept the Education Committee report. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting this report, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes 7-0. Thank you. Next, we have the Human Resources Committee. Member Sandstead.
Thank you, Chair Kirby. The Human Resources Committee met last Monday and had a fairly brief meeting. We had 2 items on the agenda. The first was the staffing report, which included all of the coaching and directing and leadership for the extracurricular type activities. And so we had many pages to look through, and we learned that the positions are designated and divided time-wise, and the amount for each position is set up in the certified contract, but the staff members or the folks who take on these roles aren't necessarily certified staff, and some of them are just folks from the community who help out and who are not otherwise teachers. We also discussed member-elect Jill Lofald being coach for the speech team, and the fact that we will need to make a separate approval in January based on a statute that requires us to approve school board members who are also employees of the district, given that she's coaching and going to be joining the board. So we'll look for that in January. The other thing on our agenda was the hourly and substitute pay rate sheet, which adjusts the wages to the income or the increase in the minimum wage that is going into effect statewide on January 1st of 2018. So with that, I move the Human Resources report.
Thank you. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to accept the HR report. Is there any discussion? Member Oswald.
I'd like to pull item 2A.
Okay. Anyone else? Why don't you go ahead?
The rate that we pay our hourly workers is extremely important. They are our lowest paid workers in the district. They never move beyond minimum wage. It can be argued that they get raises every time the state raises the minimum wage, and it has in the past. I don't care to rehash that right now. What I care about is that for those employees that choose to remain in those positions, such as playground monitors and parent involvement coordinators and other vitally important people in the district, for years, some people choose to remain in those jobs because they love them, and I think they deserve a yearly raise, just like every other employee. So I'm going to propose a motion, and the motion is to provide a raise equal to the raise given teachers each year for all hourly, non-substitute employees remaining in the same hourly position they held the prior year. The first raise will begin August 2018 and continue annually on an employee's anniversary date. It will not be retroactive. I'll write it down for you.
Can, read it again. Right, we need that again.
I can read it again. Okay. I can also write it down for you too, but I'll read it again.
All right, please do.
To provide a raise equal to the raise given teachers each year for all hourly, non-substitute employees remaining in the same hourly position they held the prior school year. The first raise will begin August 2018 and continue annually on an employee's anniversary date. It will not be retroactive.
You got it?
I think so.
All right, that's been moved, and I believe there was a second.
I don't know who seconded it.
Second, Senator Johnston.
Sorry, just let me do
it. Got it?
Member Oswald, second Member Johnston.
Right.
All right. Whew.
Okay, thank you. I won't read that again. Any discussion on this? Member Sandstead.
I do believe Member Welty had his light on first, and I would defer to him. Come back to me, please.
You want Member Welty?
Thank you, Member Sandstead. I presume that what your motion envisions is a percentage increase that would be the same as the percentage that the teachers have, so 1% or 2% or 3%, whatever it happens to be during any contract negotiation. Would it be necessary, do you think, to make that clear by the insertion of the word percentage increase in your motion, or can we?
I would like to insert such words into my motion.
Yeah, if I would have no objection. I don't know if anybody else would. I just think that would be a wise thing to do.
Thank you. Member Sandstead.
Thank you. I have to say I agree in principle with raising up the wages for our hourly workers. One particular, I'm just looking over your wording here, that having the same hourly position that they had the prior year might be overly restrictive, in that if somebody wants to shift to a different position, would they then be ineligible? I think we would want to re-examine that language. But bigger picture, I think as we had our AFSCME paraprofessionals here earlier, they're going into contract negotiations coming up, and I'm not sure that us voting on your motion tonight works well in sort of the big picture of how things are going to move forward in terms of pay. So I don't think I'm going to support your motion today, because I don't think that necessarily the timing is right, but I am supportive of increasing the rates for our lowest paid hourly workers.
Member Johnston.
Thank you, Chair. I've had motions similar to this being introduced now, I think, probably 4 years and running. And everybody says that votes against it that the timing isn't right. I guess I would hope that the board members would say we've passed this on enough and it's time that we do something, and we do it now. I do have a point of information to the maybe to the member Oswald. I believe that the minimum wage rate from the state increases. I believe in the future, somebody can maybe correct me, but this year the minimum wage rate is probably more than a 2% increase. And what would happen if there is a minimum rate increase by Minnesota law, and if that would be more than the 2%? Can somebody clarify that? Then I do have some other comments.
Okay. Mr. Swirsky, do you know?
I was not going to speak to that, although what I would say is this year the minimum wage, and my math is not that great, but would be going from the $9.50 to the $9.65. That's the rate that you see on here in terms of the minimum wage. So I can do a quick calculation on that.
Does anybody know if the rate's increasing? I haven't been following the minimum rate law. Does anybody know if it's increasing more in the future?
Yes. Yes.
I don't believe that's...
No.
Go ahead.
It's a 1.5%.
This is from
the 950 to the 965 is a 1.5% increase. So the minimum wage is going up a 1.5% increase. And if we looked at the minimum wage from 2013 to January 1 of 2018, there's a 33% increase.
But no one knows what the, beyond this, I think that's what Member Johnson's asking. Yeah, what?
Well, beyond this, it's set to inflation.
Set to inflation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The law states something to the effect that it'll be reviewed annually based upon inflation.
Thank you.
I guess I'm a little bit worried here that 2% may even be less than what the law may say. And I was going to make a motion that the minimum rate that we pay would be $1 over the minimum rate being set by the state law. I guess I will obviously support this motion, even though I think it should be much greater, because these are the lowest paid people in our district. And I just want to reiterate again from the Local Solutions for Poverty, there was a question posed to all the city council candidates about would they support a $15 an hour minimum wage. Every candidate was very strong in the affirmative. I'm very concerned that we as a school district are certainly way behind the ball. We should all be supporting much more than 2%. We should be supporting $15 rate minimum per hour minimum rate. But we'll see where the discussion goes here.
Thank you. Member Harley, you haven't had a chance to.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I have a hard time because this was not brought up at the meeting last week. Didn't have the week to think more about it. I know it's been brought up in the past to add the dollar, now seeing this percentage, but also hearing from, I'm agreeing with Member Sandsted's comments on timing as we head into a number of other negotiation processes. So I'll be voting against this, though in theory I'm very supportive of it, but we should have had more time. It wasn't just brought forward tonight.
Member Welty?
Well, I have had several months to think about it since the idea was brought about originally and shot down. I mean, this is this is a motion that really honors people who are just below our peers who spoke to us today about the difficulty that they anticipate we will have finding new people to do the critical work that they do in the classroom with kids who are in great need, because their level of pay is so low. And of course, the people who work with the kids all the time in cafeterias and on the playground are making considerably less as hourly employees. It occurs to me that perhaps what we should do, if we're going to vote on this up or down, one way or the other, is to just make clear that we do not intend to substitute a more significant minimum wage increase with whatever it is that the teachers are paid. So I would guess that terminology like this, or an increase in Minnesota wage, in the minimum wage, whichever is the greater, would be, wouldn't that clear it up? In other words, how about whatever the teachers make over plus whatever the minimum wage says? I'm watching, I remember Oswald's face, and she's pointing to Mr. Swirsky, so I will defer to Mr. Swirsky if the chair approves.
Mr. Swirsky, do you have some insight?
I just wanted to point out, and we talked about it briefly at the committee meeting, all the positions that are on this sheet are non-bargaining positions. So this sheet does include the para substitutes as well as the teacher substitutes. The only reason I bring that up is if I would not exclude them from this group, because I believe that's one of the major groups you're trying to be inclusive of. So not the para substitutes, not the teacher substitutes? Okay.
Member Oswald, do you have a...
I do. I have quite a number of comments. To Member Johnston, I'm asking for this raise above and beyond their base wage. Whether or not you propose a $1 an hour increase over the minimum wage is not reflective on what I'm intending to introduce here. It's a percentage increase for every year of loyalty remaining in the same position, just like any other worker deserves in any other position that is a regular worker. And these positions are less than 14 hours a week. They're not glorious positions, but some people find great joy and love in what they are. This is the only time that this is ever on the agenda to discuss and propose these kinds of things. Whether or not we're entering into contract negotiations with any other bargaining unit doesn't matter in this, because they don't have a union contract to bring up to promote for themselves a raise of any kind. They have always been the lowest paid workers and always will be paid minimum wage without us taking independent action. And so the percentages I'm talking about are the 1 to 1.5 to 2% increases every year, the same that we're paying our teachers. And the differences for our teachers is in hundreds or thousands of dollars. The difference for our minimum wage workers is like 18 cents an hour. It's very minimal, but yet it's everything to somebody to get a pat on the back for saying, hey, we appreciate you staying here and continuing in these positions that are really hard to fill. And no, I'm not talking about substitutes. I know substitutes don't have guaranteed hours or positions or anything. I'm talking about the people in regular jobs such as playground monitors, cafeteria workers, parent involvement coordinators. Those people with the less than 14 hours a week that get paid minimum wage no matter what. And I personally know some people that have been in those jobs, 10, 15 years now, and they always make minimum wage. The percentage increase in the minimum wage doesn't matter in this because they're always the lowest paid person. Yes, I know minimum wage has increased 33%, or it's gone from, I believe, $8 an hour to $9.65 during my time here, I think. But that still doesn't make them any richer. That doesn't give them any more satisfaction on a job well done. It doesn't give them incentive to stay. I want to give them a reason to stay, to continue doing what they love. And even if it is 18 or 20 cents an hour increase in a year, that's still something in a strapped budget that we have. It's very minimal. And I hope that people will consider voting for it. I think the details, such as Member Johnston's point that, how does this all work and that kind of stuff, I think those are details that can be worked out once the motion's passed.
Member Lefter Kemp.
Yeah, I want to clarify and then make a statement. Mr. Swirsky, this discussion about wages for the employees that are listed here can also be part of our budget discussion that we'll be entering in for next year, right?
That'd be correct.
Okay. And I thought so based on every year when we've had these discussions or when they've came up, it hasn't been at the right time. And so I think we all agree that we want to pay more for our employees, but there is a timing when we can't just be raising raising salaries without kind of thinking of the big picture, as Member Sandstead talked about, or the timing of when we're having other discussions. And frankly, I'd want to be asking Mr. Swirsky for more information on how many people are in these positions, how many people do we have staying in these positions, how many people do we have moving into other positions, and we really haven't had that discussion, and I'd want to have that. And so I can't support it, not because I don't support having an increase. I just think the timing needs to be a part of the bigger discussion of our budget and the impact as we're looking at all of the salaries and benefits.
Thank you. Member Johnston.
Thank you. We've been hearing for 4 years that okay, the timing is not right, or it's not the right time. We've been hearing this too many times. And we hear that we all agree that we should be paying more, but we're not. And it's time that we acknowledge that, no, we don't think we shall be paying more. People that say that the timing is wrong, they're saying that, no, these people don't deserve an increase. We've known the information. We've asked about it for 3 years. We've got the numbers down exactly how much this is. And another thing, we did talk about this last week, was part of the discussion. And if you don't believe that, look at the YouTube. And we did talk about it. I told the people that we were going to amend this, and we did have a discussion on it. Not as thorough as we're having now, but we did have a discussion on it. So it is time. I will be supporting this. I think it should be much greater than Member Oswald, but I will support the bare minimum that this is. This is a bare minimum. It's a bare minimum that some of the people that, as Member Oswald said, really love their jobs that have been doing it sometimes for 10, 20 years, deserve that recognition, and that's a bare minimum that we should be able to be giving them as a school board to acknowledge their hard work.
Member Sandstead.
I am a little confused about who we're talking about in terms of, we have this in front of us with the hourly substitute pay rate sheet, but Member Oswald's motion uses the term hourly non-substitute. And so I kind of feel like I need a Venn diagram of who's included in this and who's not included in this, and also to know what the budgetary impact of this is. And so again, I would like to support an increase for our minimum wage paid staff. However, I need to see the numbers in front of me. I need to know who we're actually talking about, and I don't think this is the time to hash that out.
Member Harlow?
I'm just wondering, a parliamentary question about if there's I would like to, if possible, postpone the motion definitely so that is inserted within the process for building the budget, so that it's not just saying, oh, we're going to talk about it in the budget. It actually is it's postponed directly to the date that the budget discussion is had, so not to pass the buck, but we actually give a time on it. And I don't know, am I able to do a motion on that, just to ensure that, yes, the discussion happens, but we have the time to that the board at the time has the time to give the data for that, get the data. What is?
Are you making that motion?
I will, yes. But we need to approve this hourly wage before the end of the year.
Okay.
So we can't take the whole.
So this is not an amendment to the motion, it's a different motion.
It's not an amendment to the
all right.
motion.
So let's deal with this first.
What I'm looking for is trying to understand.
Okay.
Because this needs to be within the budget discussion. It's been said every year, it needs to be talked about. The last couple of years, I've assumed members that have brought it forward would actually bring it forward during the discussions and haven't seen it brought forward then. So ensuring that it can happen in the future, I would like that. So I won't be voting for this, but I will be bringing a motion forward once I see the results of this, for this to happen within the budget discussions.
Thank you. Superintendent.
Well, what you said kind of changed what I was saying. I too was wondering which of the positions we are talking about. And as I agree that we need to know exactly what we're talking about before it gets passed, because if we're not really clear when it does get passed, then we're going to have to revisit and work through all of this. Doing a little side notebook math here, using a 965 rate to 2% is about $19 cents an hour. If we said it was 14 hours a week, that would be $220 a week for a total of $102.67 per year per person. But I don't know how many people we're talking about. So.
There's another light on. I think all of us agree that we would like to pay everyone more, and I don't think any of us are saying that we don't want to pay any more by not supporting this. At one point in time, previously we had discussed something called salary compression, and one of the other consequences of raising even a little bit means that it has an effect on other positions and salaries above. Is that correct? We don't have any idea of what that would do? Mr. Swirsky?
If you were consistent with the settlements of some of the other contracts, the compression is just going to ride along, and probably stay at the same rate between them. That wouldn't be an issue. I was going to comment that Member Harlow is correct that this rate has to be in effect by January 1st. And Member Oswald, in terms of the date you're looking at, in terms of having this in place, maybe this is where you're going, Member Harla, is the resolution could be to have this a part of the budgeting process for next year, the minimum wage. I will say the sweet range right now, when you see all these help wanted signs, is $10 to $15 an hour. And that represents pretty much everybody on this sheet. I would be hesitant to look at one group without looking at all the groups on this sheet. So.
Thank you. Everybody's had a chance. Member Oswald and Member Johnson, do you have something to conclude with so we can go on? Member Oswald?
Thank you, Chair Kirby. The reason why I bring it up now is because we don't ask any union bargaining group to wait to approve their contract during our budget talks. I do recognize that numbers might be useful. I would be willing to postpone this definitely until next month so we could know the number of employees that it would affect and have some figures with that. Knowing that that I'm not asking for these raises to begin until the beginning of next school year. I think that's a firm budget number that can be implemented easily into a 2018-19 budget. Salary compression doesn't exist. These are always and will forever be minimum wage jobs. I'm just asking that the people that work them more than 1 year get a little bit of a pat on the back for their loyalty to continue in a job that's often thankless. These will be classified as minimum wage jobs. They are minimum wage jobs. Whenever anybody starts in them, they get paid minimum wage. Salary compression isn't an issue. So if the majority of board members would rather wait, and I can postpone this definitely until next month, I would be willing to do that.
I would second that.
Okay, Member Johnston.
Wait, there's been
Are you making a motion now to?
Yes, postpone definitely until next month.
Well, we were going to vote on this motion first. That you had made that first. I would vote in.
I didn't actually. Point of order.
Is the second withdrawn?
As a point of order,
There's a motion on the floor. It's not an amendment to the motion that's there. Okay. It's a different motion. So let's vote on this motion first.
There was a motion about the motion.
Member Johnston?
I actually had a point of order prior to Member Johnston.
Well,
the motion was made, and another motion can be made to postpone that indefinitely. It's part of the same motion.
All right. So the motion is what then? Can you state your motion?
Postpone definitely until next month.
Until next month?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to that?
I second it.
Seconded by Member Sanchez. Is there any discussion on this motion?
Yes.
Member Harlow?
Second.
There you go.
I'm just taking a note. 1 second.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. I do believe that this does need to happen within the budgeting process. It goes along with the timeline that Member Oswald has brought forward for it to begin in August, where our budget begins as of July 1st. Is that correct? Okay, so going through with that process, being able to have this actually happen within that budgeting process, ensuring that this can happen. That's why my hope for the motion is to happen later. So I'll be voting against this because I think it needs to happen within that process.
Is there any other discussion? I too will be voting against it. I think that we need more information than just that we can get in the next month. We need more of the budgetary parameters that we'll be dealing with. So I'll be voting against it. Member Leffler-Kemp.
I just want to reiterate again that I'll be voting against it, not again because I don't agree with an increase in salary for any of our employees, but because I strongly believe it needs to be a part of our budget process.
Member Welty.
Yes, I have a question here. Are we about to vote on a postponement till next month, or the motion that it was originally here? So we've got people who are arguing to vote against the postponement. That's how I've taken the last three.
The motion is to postpone it definitely until next month. That's what we're.
So okay.
Any other discussion? Questions? Seeing none, then. Can you read our motion so we're all clear on what we're voting for here or against?
The motion to postpone until next month, the discussion on, I think it actually, does it become a motion? Point of clarification, is this a motion to postpone the entire discussion or this entire sheet? This entire sheet, or is it, okay, because I understood it was just the addition into it, so.
My motion, whatever my motion.
I'm asking you what your motion is because I don't understand.
My motion's about a raise.
Correct. So what I'm trying to understand is it about this whole sheet plus the motion, or is it just the motion on top of it that you want to postpone until next month?
I would like to postpone the whole thing.
Okay. So there's been a motion to postpone the hourly substitute pay rate sheet until next month, to the discussion on until next month, with the inclusion of the amendment that is stated. provide a percentage increase equal to the raise given to teachers each year for all hourly non-substitute employees remaining in the same hourly position they held the prior school year. The first raise will be August 2018 and continue annually on all employees' anniversary date. It will not be retroactive. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you.
All right, and there was a second. Member Sandsted? You seconded? Okay. Member Superintendent Gronson.
I just want to bring us back to the fact that this is to be in place on January 1st, that this rate needs to be in place by January 1st, and the proposed raise is additional to start in August. I'm wondering if they could be approached as two separate pieces so that we can have this in our process for our payroll department to get to work on this, and then have further discussion, and keep it as an agenda item for next month or wherever you want it, but put this through so that we can have this in our system for January 1st.
I believe, well, Member Oswald can.
I understand the logic in that. However, by keeping it attached to this, it makes it a priority discussion. Otherwise, there's no reason to just postpone it a month. We could just be postponing it until the budget discussion. So I would like to have the discussion before the end of the school year, so I would really like to keep it included.
If we don't approve this minimum wage, does that present any problems, Mr. Swirsky?
I believe at the next school board meeting would be that third Tuesday of December, and then we'd be shortly into the new year. It would be impactful, and it would be, I'm not going to call it a hardship, but we'd be scattering ourselves around a little bit to get everything in place. I do agree. I think they can be, I understand Member Oswald's concern, but they should be looked at as two different items. We have two different time frames. There's no reason why we can't bring this rate sheet with that new minimum wage back next month. That we can do.
Member Sandstead.
I'm just going to clarify that I'm going to support Member Oswald's motion to definitely postpone, but I'm then going to make a motion that we approve this because we can go forward. They don't have to be tied together. It doesn't need to happen, and it is very helpful for our staff to have this approved to be able to move forward into the new year.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Then the motion of a yay will mean you support the motion to postpone definitely until next meeting in December the discussion that Member Oswald has raised. A nay will mean you do not for a variety of reasons, which could mean that you want to discuss later or you don't want to discuss at all, but a yay means that you will postpone it. So, all in favor?
Wait, a nay means you would postpone it?
Yeah. No, a yay means that you will support her motion to discuss this next month. And I just said a nay can mean lots of things, but a yay means that you support it. So, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay. No. So it passes 4-3. Thank you. 4-3. You got okay. Member Sandstead.
Okay, just for procedural clarity, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the hourly substitute pay rate sheet as proposed on page 9 and 10 of the HR committee.
So it's been moved and seconded. Yes. Member Oswald.
If we passed the last resolution with the intent of this entire discussion being moved to next month, and that passed, how can we revisit that vote already?
Point of order, as someone who votes in the affirmative, they're able to bring it forward within the next discussion.
Thank you.
So it's been moved and seconded to pass the hourly substitute pay rate sheet as proposed to us, which we've been told is separate. There can be considered separately from any other increases. Any discussion on this? Member Johnston.
I'm going to support just a clarification. Anybody can make a motion, as Member Sandstead has, to do what we did here to pass that song, which I support. You don't have to have voted affirmative previously.
Can you repeat that?
He was mansplaining.
Oh.
You were just explaining what I said.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Seeing no other lights, all in favor of this motion to support the hourly substitute pay raise sheet that we have before us, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. So it passes 6-1. All right. I think there were no other items pulled from the HR report. That's been moved. I believe it was seconded
By Member Welty.
by Member Welty to pass. Is there any further discussion on the HR report? Seeing none, all in favor of passing the HR report, say aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes 7-0. Thank you. What time is it? Do you want to take a 2 to 3 minute break before we have the business report? Thank you. Could I ask the board members to come back, please, so we can get the meeting going?
There's always a way.
I was looking at this. I think... All right, thank you. Next, we have the Business Committee report. Member Harlow.
Great. Thank you, Chair. Just to begin our Business Committee report, it was extensive, had good discussions with the board, and so hope the folks know that they can see a lot of that very thorough discussion on the YouTube video that we had last week. Heading through with the financial reports approved of Kate, with area 1A through G, one area of note is that we are up a number of students within our average pupil unit projections, so that's being addressed district-wide. So glad to see we have students coming into our district. The next piece is that the number 2 is a bid for bid 1261 data center co-location services. They were sent to 2 known vendors, advertising sent to 2 known vendors, and one was chosen. We'll continue to work with Involta at the maximum anticipated setup amount of $189,600. And so it's an organization we've worked with thus far. They store a lot of our data, and we were provided a lot of options should we add additional one-to-one services if we need it. But right now, they have been good to work with, and it is recommended that we approve the bid as submitted by Involta. There were no RFPs or quotes. Then moving on to school board meeting minutes. This is the first reading, so knowing that as a board we'll be able to discuss this next month as well. And there was a lot of discussions on these. So initially there was a new policy 204 for school board meeting minutes, and that would replace policy 8090 preparation for meetings. That would delete that. It would delete procedures during meetings. But to be noted, there's a portion of the procedures for during meetings where there has been a deletion, and so I'm guessing there will be some discussion about how that may actually need to stay, because meetings don't actually define what minutes are, and so I think it'd be important that we make sure that we continue to have our procedures on the book, so that can be discussed. It would also delete school board records, the policy on school board records, as well as official publications and minutes. So that is one whole package that would be covered by that new policy as they were pulled together. So that is the first reading, and that is a part of the process for moving to the Minnesota School Board Association standard policies. The next area is the data practices piece. As a district, we need to be in compliance for how to go forward with data practices requests. And so brought forward for our discussion is the new policy, and it was recommended the Duluth School Board table this policy in anticipation of MSBA model policy being published about December 2017. I want to specifically thank Member Oswald for calling the Minnesota School Board Association and asking them about their timing for this. I think it's prudent that we not just kind of make up our own policy and then have to revisit it in 2 months. So I appreciate you bringing that forward and doing that work. There was some significant consternation from Member Johnston, who thinks we need this right now, understanding that there have been some concerns and there were areas that were brought up with regard to data privacy. Should people have questions on it, there was significant discussion. Member Johnston outlined his concerns within that meeting, but the majority of folks kind of agree that the best time to have this discussion is to have and continue with the model policy discussion that the Minnesota School Board Association is bringing forward, especially since they have a lot of lawyers that run through these to make sure that they are in compliance with state statute. So that is G and H. Then moving forward into the contracts. Change orders and leases. There were no contracts. Then it comes to the change orders. The first change order is change order for bid number 1258, district-wide playground rubber mulch replacement. This may potentially be the last time as a school board that rubber mulch is discussed for a long time, and I am glad that we are at the end of this chapter where we have students who have the opportunity for healthy and safe play environments. So that being said, there have been a few items going on in the community where there's been nerves about, was it the correct mulch or process? The district has put into place a system that in the spring they will double check all the different areas. As we sit right now, we have, within our contracts, we have all the different pieces that have assured us through testing and data that we have what we have, but we're going to double check again in the spring just to make sure that is correct. That being said, should something not be correct, we would work to make sure that it's rectified. And because we have the data and contract set, the liability wouldn't necessarily fall on us, it would fall on that other organization. So knowing that, it is recommended that the Duluth School Board approve the deduction of a change order in number 1 with A-plus landscaping in the amount of $60,899 for a new contract sum of $980,365. So we will actually be paying almost $61,000 less due to that, and so that ties into the second change order because there was an additional amount of work done by SAS and Associates, and I want to thank them specifically for their work. There's not a lot of places around the state or nation that are making these big switches after they've had that. And so in looking at once the rubber mulch was pulled out, they found that some of the footings were deep enough so they didn't actually need the poured in place rubber at the base of some of the more concerning fall zone areas. And so they were able to save us a significant amount they helped us save us that $61,000, but their additional work did require an addition of $12,475. So it is recommended that the Duluth Public Schools approve the change order as listed pertaining to RFP 306, removal of rubber mulch from playgrounds. This change order adds $12,475 to the previously awarded base bid. CO number 1 for a new contract sum of $68,425. There were no additional placeholders. The lease with the Hills continues to be a discussion, and then Chair, I'll move into the resolution section, if that's your pleasure.
Sure.
Whereas resolution acceptance of donations to the Duluth Public Schools. Whereas Minnesota State statute requires the school district to accept donations by resolution expressed in the terms prescribed by the donor in full, and whereas acceptance of the donations in accordance with the donor's terms is in the best interest of the Duluth Public Schools. Now therefore be it resolved that the Duluth Public Schools does accept the below described donations from said organizations in accordance with the terms set forth herein. Be it further resolved that the Duluth Public Schools wishes to extend its grateful appreciation to these various individuals. And so a number of donations to Denfeld Tea Club, the 5th grade at Starbase, to the 148th Air Wing from AAR, a number of student government donations to East, and a number of donations to Lester Park, Laura MacArthur, and Special Services. So I move Resolution B-11-17-3492.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution B-11-17-3492. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This passes 7-0.
Right, next is the Resolution B-11-17-3493, authorizing the amendment of joint powers agreement with the State of Minnesota Perpich Center for the Arts. Be it resolved that the Duluth School Board of Independent School District 709, St. Louis County, State of Minnesota, that the amendment of the joint powers agreement between the State of Minnesota Perpich Center for the Arts Education and ISD 709 attached is hereby approved. And so this is, we are able to provide a number of opportunities for ongoing learning for our staff through the Perpich Center for the Arts. And so this is the resolution of our joint powers agreement for this. So I move this resolution.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution B-11-17-3493. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor of this resolution say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes 7-0.
Right. Ooh. Where did this go?
So 56.
Yeah. But I'm not reading this full thing. So 56 B-11-17-3494, providing for the issuance, sale, delivery of taxable general obligation facilities maintenance bonds, Series 2017A. I thought I had a note in here.
59.
It's in 59.
Oh, it's on 59. Okay, Thank you. Be it resolved that the Duluth School Board of Independent School District 709, Duluth, St. Louis County, Minnesota, the district as follows: authorizes the bond and purpose authorization, the negotiated sale, the parameters resolution, the award of sale, through the terms of the bond that are listed on this, the interest payment rates recorded to date, as well as registration for the global book entry system, the transfer and exchange, all the way through, preparation and delivery and the form of bonds, as well as the principal amount, the registration, transfer, fees upon transfer, loss, treatment of registered owner, authentication. So it is hereby certified and is followed through the bond registrar's authentication certificate. It's a very long resolution.
This is 17 pages long, this resolution.
So, and I've read this, as all of us have: preparation and execution, delivery of bonds, covenants, accounts, and reparations. No, excuse me, I want to say that word correctly. Representations, debt service fund, tax levy, certificate of proceedings, miscellaneous. To be paid by the school board in the appropriation of $806,322 from the general fund reserves for long-term facilities maintenance and $3,999.55 from their rounding amount. With that said, I move Resolution B-17-3494.
It's been moved and seconded to pass Resolution B-11-17-3494. Is there any discussion? Member Johnston.
Yeah, I'm going to make a couple comments. I'm going to be voting for this, but there's two points I want to make before I do vote for that. One, this has been going on a long time, and I support helping out the Hills, and it's a mutual thing, and that's been very good for their students as well as us. But it started out, I think, a little bit rocky. I think we were not really given, it seems like we had already made the decision before we knew how much it was going to cost. And the cost did go up, and so that's one of my concerns, is that I think we should have had a little better planning at the start. We should have been a little more upfront with the potential increases in cost that could have happened, which did. Again, I am voting for this, but I wish that we could have had a little more transparency, had a little more options way back when it would have been possible, and we were never really given those options. The second point I want to make is that even though I am voting for this, there was a lot of discussion in the local media on our bond rating status, and this came from when we asked for these bonds, for this basically $4 million. We had to get a report from a bond rating company, Moody's, and the report did come out. Just want to make a couple comments on that. They gave us a bond rating of Baa1, which in general vernacular is considered a junk bond. And as far as I've been able to tell, talking to some of my people that are in the finance world, it is thought that we have the lowest bond rating of any school in the state of Minnesota. And that does not bode well. A couple of things I just want to mention from the Moody's report. Why did we have a low bond rating? They had 6 main items: declining enrollment due to competition, budget deficits, reduction in reserves causing more short-term cash flow borrowing, debt burden, debts being paid from annual appropriations or the general fund, and lack of near-term plans to improve our financial position. Those were all issues that were brought up by the Moody's report, which I think we all have a copy of. I think it's important that we look at that, and I think it's important, particularly I thought the last step was we passed a motion here a few months ago looking at this, but they emphasized, and their thing is lack of near-term plans to improve our financial position. That is what we as a board should be doing. We should be telling the administration, and we've already started directing them to increase our financial planning so we don't have these other issues. So in the future, we won't have this issue. Luckily, the bond markets are so low that our bond rating came in about 3%, and that's not really too bad. If we would have had a higher bond rating, it would have probably been about 2%. But since the bond isn't real high, it's not costing the taxpayers a lot of extra money. But it is an issue which we should be doing better. I just want to point out early when we've had these discussions, and I had tried to have a meeting with the superintendent and the financial officer, Mr. Hasler. When I asked to redo our debts, I asked for a 3% analysis, and that was refused to be done because everybody said the rates were much higher than that. We'd never get 3%. And, well, it turns out that we have, even with a Baa1 rating, we've got a 3% rating. And this is somewhat water under the bridge, but I'm just pointing out here that the administration refused to even do an acknowledgement of the rates that I wanted to, showing how much money we could do if we refinance all our debts. So it's re-emphasizing again publicly that we very well could have had the 3% or even less, which I was advocating for long ago, even though we did pass an amended motion then to have the administration start replanning. But my original plan is well within the bond rates where we're at. With that said, again, I will be voting for this, but I think it's important that the public knows that this indicates that our financial situation is not real good in our school.
Member Lefler Kemp.
Yeah, I just wanted to pass on and then also have Mr. Hassler as well as the superintendent speak. We did have a presentation by Steve Pumper. Am I pronouncing his name right or wrong? Pumper, yeah, who I know since I've been on the board, he has came in front of us every year and provided more background information to help us better understand this process. And so just for the record, I guess, could you just speak to his experience and why we have him come and present to us to help provide us advice and understanding?
Mr. Hassler?
Happy to do that. Mr. Pumper at one time, many years ago, was a school business manager for a Minnesota school district, but he has worked in the work that he does now as a financial advisor for many years, and has worked with Minnesota school districts on bond issues of all sizes. He's certainly provided those services to us for a number of years, and has a lot of experience in the field. I'd like to follow up on a statement about the rate of interest on the bonds that relate to the resolutions that are on the agenda tonight. They are a little bit under 3%, and a comparison was made between that interest rate on those bonds and the interest rates that we were talking about for a potential refunding of our long-term debt issues, and I would suggest that that's not a good comparison. These bonds are 5-year bonds, and our long-term debts would be a longer payback period, and the market interest rate for those bond issues would be well above what we are getting for these 5-year bonds.
Member Oswald.
Thank you. I agree with Member Johnston that, it does make me sad that we didn't explore what could have potentially been cheaper options, so we would have had to have less money taken out in bonds. We'll never really know how much we could save because Rock Ridge was always the only option. But however, I'm just going to ask this question because I sent out an email early last week regarding our reserve funds, since Member Johnston brought it up, in that just when are we as a board going to find out the exact data that of an explanation of where our reserve funding went exactly. I know there was a mention of a meeting, and I just would like to know when that's going to happen, and when that conversation will happen.
Superintendent?
I see Mr. Hassler's light is on as well, but my assumption is that he's going to say that will be an item on next month's agenda as we review the completed audit for FY17.
Thank you.
Member Harlow.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, so we're ensuring that the students that are attending Woodland Hills, actually no, now is it Rock Ridge Academy? Is that correct? Now that the name has changed as of maybe an hour and a half ago?
We already did that.
We did do that tonight. How much, what was the least amount of money that we spent on one of our schools during the long-range facilities plan? I know that's a left wing question, but one question is that in the process for that, those students were left out. And this is a chance to provide opportunity for all of our students to have access to a facility that is up to date, where they're able to learn in environments that have healthy air and are updated in a much better way. That being said, it wasn't our facility before. Now it's an opportunity that we can provide each of our students district-wide the same access to spaces that are safe for them that are up to date for them to learn in. So I want to make sure that that's clear with this conversation.
Thank you. Before I let Member Johnson talk again, I think I agree that the Moody's report did give a lot of reasons why our bond rating was low, but it was lower than anticipated for reasons that we had no control over, which had to do with special education funding, which is being addressed. And I think I remember Mr. Pumper saying that we were able to take advantage of Minnesota higher bond rating because of membership in the School Board Association. Member Hassler, or Mr. Hassler?
It's called the Credit Enhancement Program, so
Right.
basically we're getting the benefit of the state of Minnesota's bond rating.
Which was higher than the one that, okay. Member Johnston, sorry.
Sure, 2 points. One is the point you just made, Chair Kirby. The issue about special ed was, I believe the superintendent was referring to why the reserve fund was down to 112,000 from 2.7 million before. The Moody's report mentioned absolutely nothing about special ed at all. It was 0. Just a clarification. The other comment I'd like to make on Mr. Hassler, we don't know what the bond rating is, but if our bond rating, we don't know what a bond rate would be, excuse me. Nobody can predict that until it's sold. But if our bond rating was up where it should be, when it is in our control, I think the thing that I point up was not to speculate on what a bond rate could be, but I wanted to show the board how much we could have saved if we would have had a standard bond rating. And that is what was refused by the administration, refused to do that. They refused to even look at what the bond rating could be with a reasonable amount. So that is what I was objecting to, not trying to argue over what the bond rate may potentially be on some hypothetical date, but yet what could our potential savings be, and it's still that way.
Member Sanstead.
I'm not sure if this is appropriate for next month as part of the audit report, but I do think it would be good for us to have a long-term plan for increasing our bond rating, and I would like to see that in the future. Some suggestions from our own experts or external experts on improving our situation financially.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then, all in favor of Resolution B 11-17-34-94, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes 7-0. Thank you.
Welty. All right, next, Resolution B-11-17-3492, providing the issuance, sale, delivery of, oops, excuse me.
95.
95. Oh, that's right, it's reading off of here.
Page 76.
Yeah, I'm on it. I'm
Okay.
just providing the issuance for sales and delivery of, sorry, there's some, providing for the issuance, sales, and delivery of $615,000 taxable general obligation capital facilities bond series 2017B, establishing the terms and form thereof, creating a construction fund, debt service fund thereafter, awarding the sale thereof. So be it resolved that the school district of the Board of Independent School District 709, St. Louis County, Minnesota, the district as follows, similar to what we said. But this portion is to be paid by the school board, appropriation for the $136,272 from general fund reserves for operating capital purposes, and $3,195 from the rounding amount. So I move that resolution.
It's been moved by Member Harless, seconded by Member Welty to pass Resolution B 11-17-3495. Is there any discussion on this? Member Sanstead, or Johnston, I'm sorry.
I'll be voting for this. Won't say my comments, but all the comments I said in the previous one apply to this as well.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then, all in favor of Resolution B 11-17-3495, say aye. Aye. Opposed? This passes 7-0.
Continuing with the Business Committee report, no additional updates on item 5E, informational items or expenditure contracts, no cost contracts, There were no change orders signed. Facilities Management Capital Status Report. Thank you as always, Mr. Spooner, for the work of your staff and your hard work. Attached a signed resolution of the long-term facilities maintenance resolution. Attached agreement was signed by the school board chair pursuant to resolution B-9-17-3484. That agreement is available for review by school board members upon request. And then future items, the final levy approval for December, FY 2016-2017 audit report results next summer, and then, not next summer, in December, and then policy updates. So I move the business committee report for today.
Is there a second? Seconded by Member Oswald?
Sandsted.
Or Sandsted? Mm-hmm. So it's been moved and seconded to pass the business committee report. Is there any discussion? Member Sandsted.
Number 4B2.
4B2. Member Johnston.
1F. And if I could, I'd like to have a vote on all of them. Item 1. Also 3G and 3H. And I would like to have a separate vote on 4B2.
And what was the other separate vote you wanted? I thought you asked for a separate vote before that on something else? The financial report in general? Okay. Member Oswald.
Item 3A and item 6A.
6A?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We'll go in order. Member Johnston. Item 1.
Okay, back to the APU real quick here. But since I've only got 2 months left here, I'll make some comments here. It is good that we've had a slight increase in our overall enrollment, but there is some trends which I see concerning, particularly for West Duluth. The increases predominantly occurred in the eastern schools, which is Lester Park, increase of 60, Lowell, increase of 40. Where did the decrease come? Our western schools. Piedmont went down 32. Stowe went down 6, not so much. Denfeld is down 16, East up a little. So it's, this is compared to a year ago in November, excuse me. This is trying to compare apples to apples, so I went back to a year ago in November. So again, my concern, of course, as the West Duluth representative, is that while we've had some increases in our schools overall, our western schools have not seen that, and we know that we already have an enrollment problem already with our western schools, and this concerns me, and I hope it concerns for the future board going forward.
Thank you. Is that, you want to vote on, a separate vote on that item?
Actually, what I wanted here, since I'm now voting against the financial report because of my concern about the financial stuff. But rather than voting against the whole business report, if I could just vote against item number 1, that would save everybody, I think, some time. So if we could have a separate vote on all of item number 1, which is a financial report. And then I will be voting against that for the reasons I've stated in the past. I think you all know.
All right.
But then I can vote for all the rest of it.
Okay. That's what you want. I don't know how we do it.
Withhold anything in there?
No, not in item 1.
So
Oh, 1F. No, that was 1F. Oh, that was the April projections.
So you can
Okay.
vote on section 1.
All right. We will do that then. All in favor of approving Section 1A through G of the financial report, say aye. Aye. Opposed? So it passes 6-1 with Member Johnston voting against. All right, thank you. Next is Member Oswald, 3A.
To be brief, I just wanted to reiterate what I said at the committee level. We're proposing to adopt a new policy 204 about school board meeting minutes, and in that is the deletion of 5 other policies, and a couple of those are bylaws, and so I made the request that this become a bylaw when we pass it, because I don't believe in deleting bylaws necessarily. They're bylaws for a reason. The difference is that it takes a supermajority to make any changes to it versus just a simple majority. So I request that next meeting we see this as a bylaw.
I think there was some discussion. Member Sandstead had some comments about the old policy 8095, which has to do with the conduct of meetings rather than the minutes of meetings. And it seemed to me that this didn't belong in this policy anyway. So I think this is all going to be discussed again at the next. This is only first reading, and we can probably even forward it another meeting if we need to. So that's taken into account. All right. Do you have anything else, Member Oswald, on that? Okay, thank you. 3G, Member Johnston. Oh, I turned it off. Sorry.
Turned it off.
Oh, there you go.
Well, thank you, Chair Kirby. I did just talk quite a bit about this. The reason I brought this up and the reason I'm bringing it up again is that I don't think that we should be delaying this. And I want to state the reasons why, because I think it's very important that the public know why that I'm opposed to any delays. I'm certainly in favor of this. First of all, I've also pulled off 3H, and first I'll go just mention the correlation there, is if we decide to postpone 3G, we also have to postpone 3H, because 3H currently says that the superintendent is responsible for addressing Data Practice Act requests, and if we delete that before we adopt a new policy, we would not have any direction at all on data practices. So that's something that I want to point out. Why do I think this is important that we don't delay this at all? I'm going to pretty much say the same thing I am, but it's important because it's important that the public knows. I sent a request. First I'll go back. Member Welty sent a request for information to the superintendent and Mr. Hasler on March 1st, 2017. It was responded by Mr. Hasler by March 3rd, 2 days later. We got that information, and we got some copies of that, those that wanted copies of it. And I was very thankful that that information was provided. Following that, I sent a request on July 18th, 2017. I have not even been responded to. Following that, I sent another one on August 10th, 2017, which was a follow-up to a request that I made. And March 24th, 2006, September 2nd, 2014, requesting information on change orders. I was never responded to back in 2014, and I have not yet been responded to since my request on August 10th, 2017. And that perplexes me. I brought this up several times. I don't get any answers from anybody. Everybody kind of stares down at their feet and doesn't say anything. Well, the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act is Minnesota law. And And it perplexes me that we were responded to immediately in 2 days back in March. But since then, and of course before then as well, we've got not even a response. I did have one response from Chair Kirby called me up, so we know people got this. I don't know why Chair Kirby called me up, but he did. And since there seems to be some confusion about who's supposed to be answering Data Practice Act requests, even though our current policy says the superintendent does, Chair Kirby apparently thinks it's his responsibility, and I did not get any information that I requested. And I am still very perplexed, and this is Minnesota law. When we took an oath as school board members, we took an oath that we would uphold all applicable laws. Minnesota Government Data Practices Act is an applicable law that everybody follows. Talking to John Ramos of the Reader, he says every government entity in the city of Duluth follows it, except the school district. And I'm bringing this up because I think it's important. We should not delay this. I'm glad that the administration brought this up, but I'd be much gladder if the administration started complying with data practice requests, and from school board members as well as from the public. And I don't think it is not acceptable for administration to break Minnesota law, and that is what's happening.
Member Lifter-Kemp.
I actually just decided to turn my light off.
Oh, okay. Oh, is it on? Okay, Member Oswald.
Thank you, Chair Kirby. I think I can express some frustration over having to listen to the same speech from Member Johnston numerous times in my 2 years sharing my seat on the board with him. What I find, I don't know what I find more disturbing, the fact that Freedom of Information Act requests are going unanswered, or the fact that a school board member has to put one in the first place. That I find troublesome. And I believe as school board members, we should be able to get and have access to the information and not have to go through the bother of filing something that an external organization has to do in order to receive the same information. So I wish that we would have responded to this differently in the past so we wouldn't have to be continuing this discussion now.
Member Welty.
My one-word comment will be preceded by a little prologue that points to the first 3 years or so that I served on the board with Member Johnston. More so than more recently, although I think there are some concerns about this last year as well, which troubled me a little bit. But my one-word comment in reply to Member Oswald is ditto.
Member Johnston?
I'd like to thank Member Oswald for reminding me of something that I was going to say, and I will. I'm quoting from a March 3rd letter from 2017 written by Mr. Hasler to Harry Welty. Make a couple comments on it. Complete copy, this is after Mr. Welty requested some data. Said complete copies of these are available for your review, is what Mr. Hasler said. Further on, he said, these records are being made available for your review in your capacity as a school board member. Further on, he said, again, you are authorized to review the complete records at Hawks. It seems like times have changed. We've had other Data Practice Act requests after that, and they haven't even been responded to. So thank you, Member Oswald, for bringing up that us as school board members should not have to beg getting information. This should be available to us as per Minnesota law.
All right, you wanted to discuss 3H2, did you do that really? Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Next is Member Sandsted, 4B2.
Thank you. This is regarding the playground mulch and the end of the saga of the mulch. I have mixed feelings about the request for change order, and I think I'm the one who asked to postpone SAS's request back in October, which was either right before or right after the deadline to finish the changeover of the mulch was taking place, which that deadline wasn't met. And my frustration with us not getting the project done in the time that we had anticipated it being done was my response was to postpone this ask for more money from SAS. I'm going to vote for it tonight, but with some hesitation, and that is based on the fact that it did take longer than anticipated, and that the initial bid estimate, however many months and months ago we got it, was such an underestimate that the parent groups who were doing fundraising actually expressed humiliation at thinking that they were going to be able to contribute based on the idea that the cost would be reasonable for something like this. And part of that was a reliance on SAS's estimate. And yes, this is the first time it's happening in the state, and so hopefully the Minneapolis schools are learning from our experience here. But given that there was extra work put in to the efforts based on unknown circumstances, I am going to vote in support of approving this change order. But like I said, we all learn from our mistakes, and I'm sure that that will be the experience for SAS in this process.
Thank you. Member Welty.
Well, at least one thing will have to be completed yet after this. My obligation to make a snow sculpture for the Lowell School, which was something that I put up for bids. So until I have completed that, this saga is not going to be completely finished, and I'm still waiting for snow and good weather and some communication with their PTA. I indicated at our last meeting that I would be voting for this. Judging by what Member Sandsted just said, this is likely to pass. But I have a very short time left on this school board to make some sort of an impact on the future, and I may in a very, very small way be able to help the difficult work of the new school board to come, which will face considerable financial difficulties. And as I've thought about this since the last meeting, this is an addition that was not contemplated. I do not know exactly what work was done. It has been argued, perhaps with, in all honesty and accurately, that because of this work we were able to save ourselves the $60,000 from the other change order that we've gotten. But this is not something that we have to pay. And I think that the Duluth School District and the school board, whenever it has an opportunity to chop off an unnecessary expense, should take advantage of it. And not voting for this would be my attempt to make life $12,000 easier for the next school board.
Member Johnson?
Thank you, Chair Kirby. I'll be voting against this. When we made this decision to replace the mulch, It was a long time coming. I supported that. It was a political decision by the board. I think we were very happy with that. I think the community was very happy with us going through and making that. It was a political decision. Once we, as a political body, made that decision, that went back and became a contract issue. It became an engineering issue. As an engineer myself, who's done many, many years of contract administration is pretty much black and white. It's not like political decisions that we make sitting up here. Engineering decisions and contract decisions in most cases are pretty much black and white. It's kind of interesting. I've managed to get a copy of this contract because of the controversy of contracts went around. This was the first time that I have actually seen a copy of any contract that was put out by the school. And there was some concerns on this contract. And just to summarize some of the concerns that we had, concerns, and we had a letter from a lawyer on October 16th outlining some of those. Some of those were accurate, some of them not. A couple of the things that I think that were accurate were the contract says, and I have the contract, I've seen it, it said that it had to be a certification that 12 years from now would still meet the ASTM specifications. And I've never seen any certification of that, 12 years. There was, in that contract, it said that looking at the ASTM specs and the testing by the testing agency, by PIMA, it said that this would have to be compacted. We talked about this at the last committee meeting that we didn't have time to do it. Well, there's a lot of changes in this contract. When you make changes on contracts, there's usually price modifications. The $60,000 was good. But when I look at the contract with SAS, they were contracted to be basically the administration of this contract. And these issues that were, I think, in violation of the contract is SAS's responsibility, not A+ landscaping. And so I'm voting for the reduction in A+ landscaping because I think they fulfilled the contract. What they thought was the contract. I don't think the contract was properly administered. And after the last committee meeting, we had the discussion, and one of the administration people walking away gave a thumbs up to SAS. I don't really think that's appropriate. I think it shows a bias from our administration toward SAS. And when I look at the administration giving a thumbs up to SAS when it was clear that probably this was going to pass, I think that shows bias. It appears to me that the administration is more concerned about SAS watching out for them than they are about watching out for our $12,000. And $12,000 is significant. We've had lots of discussion on a whole lot less than that. So for all of those reasons and more, I have no choice but to vote against this contract, or this change order for SAS, because I think the contract was poorly administered, and I think it is not appropriate to give somebody extra money. Oh, also, when I read the original contract with SAS, their justification was covered in the contract. There was no justification whatsoever reading the original contract of what happened and what this $12,000 change order is. For all those reasons, I'm voting against it.
Mr. Spooner.
Yes, I would like to clarify with members of the board that Luke asked me if he could leave, and I gave him the thumbs up. It wasn't your contract is going to pass. That's completely misrepresenting anything that I did. And I would like to also state that I gave direction as the owner's representative to SAS Plus Associates to perform extra work over and above a contract we had agreed upon. It was my direction given to him to do that work. And it was given at a time when we had to make a decision fairly quickly because that work was needed to evaluate where the port in place would go. There wasn't time to have a board meeting and discuss whether this change order should be approved or not. So it's work direction that I provided as an owner's rep, and I just want the board to be aware that if design professionals in this town understand that should unforeseen conditions come up, that they're not going to be compensated for additional design services, they're going to inflate their initial fees to cover themselves. So we're going to pay more for years to come if we don't approve this, and if we don't have a good reputation of treating design professionals and contractors fairly. And this isn't an unnecessary expense. This is an expense that I authorized to be done by the contractor that I understand and know was not part of the original agreement.
Thank you. Member Oswald.
Thank you, Mr. Spooner. I was actually going to speak to what you had just mentioned from the discussion in the committee meeting. I appreciate your honesty and ownership of exactly how this expense came about. I am disappointed that you didn't at least make a phone call to some kind of board leadership or attempt an emergency meeting. We do have provisions for emergency meetings, those sorts of things. I would certainly hope in the future that you would not choose to do such a thing, knowing that this was a highly controversial topic. I'm going to vote against this because of those reasons, knowing and assuming it's going to pass. Kind of in protest, just to make sure that my point is made, that I would really like to choose to be able to approve these expenses in the future.
Mr. Spooner.
Member Oswald, I guess I would like clarification or clear direction from the board regarding me authorizing change orders, because I'm doing it every day at Rockridge. And that's expected of me. That's part of my job duties. And when work needs to be done today, we don't have time to have a board meeting today. I mean, we could have a board meeting every day if we want this week or next week, but if this is in general and it covers all change orders, that direction will have to be given to me.
Thank you. Mr. Welty. Member Welty.
Mr. Spooner, first a question, then a comment. Question I have is this: as our representative overseeing this, were you the person who was primarily in contact and telling the actual doing the work, A+ landscaping, how to proceed, or was that the work of the people at SAS?
No, as the owner's rep, I work directly with SAS Plus Associates. They provide work direction to A+.
But when you say that, were you in fairly regular contact with them, or did you delegate that responsibility to the people at SAS to do the contact with A+ Landscaping?
Our design professional provides all direction to the contractor, but I'm aware of each conversation and I'm copied on every email.
Okay. Well, here's my comment. I've not had a direct conversation with A+ Landscaping, but one of the things that the people at A+ seem to be passing on is tremendous satisfaction with their conversations with you and work with you. And I commend you for what appears to be a great deal of satisfaction on their part. I believe that Member Oswald has pulled another portion of the Business Committee report having to do with the authorization of expenses by our superintendent to talk about. This $12,000 expense is not one of the big expenses. I think in the past we have like a $25,000. Our policy has a $25,000 limit, at which point if an expense is going to be more than $25,000, it has to come to the board for the board's approval. Certainly this $12,475 does not exceed that amount. But I think I'm going to stick with what I had said before, and it will be on my shoulders, not yours, in terms of your dealings with the administrators, SAS. We don't have to pay the $12,475 if we don't want to do it, despite your promises to SAS to the contrary. And my concern is for the future of the school district, and I think this small withholding of funds for SAS, should it pass, would be a message to the community that this board that was about to change is paying attention to what it absolutely has to do so that we can turn as much money as possible towards the process of educating kids who don't have nearly enough teachers' time. So I will continue to vote against it, and I am sorry if that puts you in an awkward position vis-a-vis SAS, which you had negotiated this expenditure with.
Thank you, Chair Kirby. I just wanted to really talk about the amount of time and effort that went into this project, especially from Mr. Spooner, who I know was putting in 12 to 14-hour days as we went through this project, addressing all of the different things that came up, from 68 out of 100 days of rain to differences and levels of those footings, and how the product was coming out and how the product was going in, and all of the complications. And I just want to thank you for all of the time and effort that you put into this. I know it took up way more time than any of us ever dreamt that it would, and had more issues involved with it than anyone thought it would. Thank you for your work on that, and I appreciate how you have built relationships with vendors and contractors throughout the region, and how much respect they have for you and the work that you do for us.
Thank you. I can appreciate the arguments that the members who have said they're going to vote no make. I just don't agree with them, but I understand what they're saying. I, too, will vote for this. I think that we should, and I want to support the work that Mr. Spooner and the rest of the district did. This did result in some savings for us, and I think we should pay it. So, seeing no other lights, Member Johnson asked for a voice vote in this, or an individual vote. So, all in favor of paying change order number 2, which is listed on page 42, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. So members Johnston, Oswald, and Welty are voting no. The remainder are voting yes, so this passes. Next is Member Oswald, 6A, I believe it was. 6A.
I have a general comment about expenditure contract signed, and then a question and comment about a specific contract that was signed. I just wanted to point out that this month alone, there's over $156,000 in expenditure contracts signed. That's quite a bit. I'm unclear as to which ones are budgeted and which ones are unexpected and opportunities to do something good. But I just wanted to make sure that people know that these are signed per our resolution to do so at our January meeting. And given our current budget constraints, I would really hope that at our January organizational meeting that we request to lower that amount from $25,000 to $10,000. And I hope we have a robust discussion about it. As to the specific contract I have to, it's on page 118 about InterQuest canines, AKA the drug dogs that were referred to earlier, I do believe. I just wanted to let the public know that I requested at the committee meeting that the school board get a report as to what is being found and to justify this expenditure. And just a clarification that doesn't seem to have happened is this agreement appears to be for both Denfeld and East for 7 visits and 1 demonstration at both places, but yet it was only signed by Danette Sebo, who's the principal at East. And so I guess the clarification I'd like to know is Are they splitting this cost in half, or is it $4,710 each?
Superintendent?
Assistant Superintendent Starzecki, could you tell us more about the contract, or perhaps Mr. Hassler?
What I believe, I don't have the contract in front of me, but what I believe is that contract was written by Danette, but is for both schools.
Thank you.
Thank you. Member Welty.
I don't need an answer now. Meetings ran a little longer than I expected that it would, but I don't. Most of these contracts, as I see them here, look like probably kind of run-of-the-mill stuff that pops up on a regular basis. A lot of them look like professional contracts. They are not the sort of things that I would have expected our old purchasing agents, when we had them, to have bid out. But it might be worthwhile at some point to get a little discussion about how many of these came as a surprise, how many of these are just an annual renewal of various contracts and things of that sort. And if you'd like to do that now, that'd be fine. Otherwise, if you'd like to offer me an explanation at some later date, that would be fine too, Superintendent.
I can briefly say that many of these are expenses that are written into department budgets so that they have been planned for, whether it's professional development or a service that's provided to a certain program, such as Office of Education Equity or Indian Education. So those are planned expenses, but perhaps maybe not by contractor written into the plan. So they may say, we are planning for $25,000 worth of professional development, and then that would break down into those individuals.
Go ahead.
If I could follow up, are there occasions when the actual contracts negotiated come in less than what the department budget had set aside for them? Or do they usually come spot on?
They usually plan an amount and then try to provide as much service as they can within that amount. So they may have budgeted $15,000 and thinking that they might have one opportunity, but then find that they spend $12,000 and find another opportunity that they can then provide for $3,000. So staying within the total budget, but individual items may vary.
Member Johnston.
Let's go back to the InterQuest canines. Just had a comment on following up from Member Oswald. Member Oswald and I kind of brought this up. This was brought to our attention by some parents in Denfeld, and the main problem was we didn't know anything about it. And we found out something, we had a discussion. But I recall from that discussion that we were promised that we were going to be given information before we entered into another contract. Information such that a presentation giving us a little bit of data, like what do they do. And you know, again, I was surprised to see this here too. I mean, I'm not sure where I think about this, but I do know that we were promised that we were going to have a presentation and we were going to have some discussion on the board before we entered into another contract with them. And so I don't know what happened.
I'm back. When the question came up this fall, I asked board leadership if I needed to get that on the Ed Committee agenda, and the request was that we could let folks know about the presentations that were happening at the schools. There was some miscommunication that happened in the last 3 or 4 weeks. They had to reschedule it a couple times, and it just got scheduled for this week. So the principals did not notify me, and as a result, I did not notify you that those presentations happened. So you are welcome to talk to those principals individually. However, I do have the video of the presentations for the board if you would like to see the presentations that happened, I believe, this week.
Thank you. Member Lefler Kemp.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a general comment about this monthly expenditure contract that we get every month, and we get anywhere from 2 to 10 pages of background information for each of these contracts. And then we have the opportunity at the committee meeting to discuss very thoroughly these contracts. And so I guess I just want to make sure that the public knows we have many opportunities before tonight, our regular board meeting, to ask questions about any of these contracts. We get a lot of background written material that is helpful for asking questions, and I guess I just wanted to clarify that based on some of the statements that were made. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Oswald.
Briefly.
Brief.
I do appreciate being able to ask questions about that, but these contracts are dated and signed before we get them. So we have no opportunity to perhaps say we don't want to do that. And that's the point I'm making.
Very briefly.
Very brief. Yeah, these are public meetings, and public meetings we can ask any question we want about anything we have that's on the agenda. And these are questions that we brought up, and that's why we have meetings.
All right. Seeing no other discussion on this, it was moved and seconded to accept the Business Committee report. Moved by Member Harla, seconded by Member Sandstead. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes 7-0.
Move to adjourn. Second.
There's been any discussion on adjourning? Seeing none, all in favor of adjourning say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.